Entropic brain might sound a bit odd. Yeah, it's the word entropy. And entropy is usually like, I don't want to have that. Uh, Entropy, like if you have two rooms of different temperatures with the door closed, and then you open the door, the idea is that it's all going to even out, right? And right now, we don't want that to happen because we want to stay alive. Right now, the temperature in your body and the temperature of the air are not the same. They're different. And we want to keep them different. Entropy from physics is a kind of a scary, profound concept. So what could an entropic brain be? They borrow the concept from physics, and I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean. So there is an extraordinary team of researchers in Imperial College in the UK, led by Robin Carhart-Harris. He has a team, and for over 10 years now, and this is 2022 as we speak, that they've been involved in radical, fascinating research in the brain. They've been using psychedelic compounds in the research. The research is not aimed at psychedelic compounds. They use psychedelic compounds as one aspect of their research. So what they've been discovering is more about the brain and not so much more about psychedelics. So I'm not taking this on a psychedelic tangent right now. This is still the brain. So this is the super short, like fortune cookie version of the entropic brain. Their position, which I agree with, is that there was an early brain. And this early brain is an evolutionary product, and that early brain offered what they call primary consciousness. So early brain, primary consciousness. And that over time, and I'll explain more, over time there's a newer brain, another brain that develops, and they said the product of that is secondary consciousness. Primary consciousness, secondary consciousness, early brain, later brain. The early brain gives us an uninhibited experience without being filtered. It is virgin and spontaneous. It's unbiased. And it primarily comes to us through the senses. There's external senses, but then there's also the internal. They call it interoception, right? What you feel on your inside. But it's a feeling thing, which very nicely associates with a very interesting statement that we human beings are feeling creatures that think. We're not thinking creatures that feel. And by feeling, to clarify, we're sensing creatures that think. We're not thinking creatures that sense. So the idea that when you have what I'll call existing or old order, a solution to a process that usually works quite well, and then boom, 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 you bump into a situation where it doesn't work. You need to change. Well, how do you change? You change by a willingness to abandon the existing order, move into a quality of mind, a state of the brain, where there's a lot of new, unstructured information. And in that state, you have the opportunity to harvest. You bring that information back into the ordered state, but now it's a higher order. Here's an example, perhaps a dumb example, right? You're laying in bed, you're laying on your right side, you're comfortable. Oddly, after a period of time, this perfectly good on my right side thing, the pillow is perfect, the blanket is perfect, you start to become uncomfortable. You need to move to your left side. Now, you can't move directly from your right side to your left side. You have to do this thing called rolling over. As you begin to roll over, you may have an idea of how you want to do it, but it's unpredictable. the pillow doesn't move at quite the right moment. Your foot gets stuck in the blanket, right? And as you're turning, all of a sudden you hit the clock with your hand and it falls down. It's like, ah. And eventually, going through this disordered, somewhat unpredictable experience, you finally settle down into your left side. The brain does this all the time. The brain will change because of need. And it will change progressively. The first thing is short-term state change, and over time, long-term trait change. So this idea of the entropic brain, which I use, mentally I use a lot, and also in the crafting of the experiences, I use this thing because it lets us understand how the brain naturally changes when you need to change. Because I ask the question a lot, is your life exactly the way you want it to be? Or are there aspects that need change? And like I said in the very beginning, if you want things to be different, you're going to have to change. So how do I change? How do I change? And this leads me into the next thing, where we go a little bit deeper into the bottom-up concept, because the old brain, primary consciousness, is neurologically bottom-up.